Hi, York. Are you going to watch our demonstration today? Well, welcome everybody to Live at Lunchtime. It is 1 o'clock and welcome.
Hi everybody, Melissa here with Mr. Dallas, who's been our star of International Hoof Care Month.
Yes, he has.
And Alex is behind the camera.
Hello.
And today is going to round out our month about hoof care. We're going to finish up this month with talking about two other common ailments of the hoof, laminitis and founder. If you remember from last week, we talked about thrush, which is a fungal infection on the frog of the hoof. And we also talked about abscesses, which affects the internal structures of the hoof. And now today we're going to talk about more about the inside of the foot. We're going to bring back our fantastic leg models that were given to us by Dr. Pullen from Horse Science Anatomyworks. They gave us two legs that we can show to you today, both of which had founder or laminitis when they were alive. They were ethically sourced. They were donated to the company after the horses passed naturally. So we're going to be bringing those out later. Dallas is going to hang out with us and keep us company for the day. And let's get started.
And you might also see Gloria, as you see in the background.
Yeah,
she may make an appearance.
There she is. Gloria's there, and York is behind Alex right now.
They're joining in live as well.
They also want to learn all about laminitis and founder, although they also might just be interested in this gigantic bucket of cookies that I have hanging out with us.
Who's to say which one it is? Who's to say?
I think they're interested in the education. I don't know. I could be mistaken. I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out. They'll have to take a pop quiz later.
That's right. That's right. We'll see if they've listened. Don't tell me the color of anything, right? Is that how most of those videos go? So let's talk about laminitis and founder. You may have heard about either of these. We have some equines here at the sanctuary who have experienced founder and laminitis. And founder and laminitis are used pretty interchangeably in the horse world. So we would say, oh, the horse foundered or he went laminitic. But what exactly is founder and laminitis? I think I'm out of cookies in my tree. In my pockets, Dallas. I'm sorry. What is laminitis or founder? Laminitis and founder both affect the laminae of the hoof. So if you remember from our lecture about hoof anatomy, we talked about the laminae. The laminae is the sensitive structure that runs around in the hoof. It attaches the hoof wall to the main bone in the hoof right here, and it also carries the blood supply that supplies all of the blood to this bone here and all the digital cushion to all of these areas. So it's very important, but it can become inflamed. So that's where the itis part in laminitis comes from. And what happens when the laminae becomes inflamed is it causes a lot of pain for the horses, unfortunately, because that nice hard shelly hoof wall that's all around their hoof, protecting all those internal structures that are very delicate, the laminae then have nowhere to go when they swell up. So it can cause some pain and discomfort in your horses. So, what causes laminitis and founder? Laminitis and founder are commonly caused by metabolic issues or anything that can cause inflammation to the lamina. There's a condition known as road founder, when horses are pounding the pavement really hard over and over again. That can cause inflammation in the lamina and cause founder or road founder. Huh, Dallas?
And we do have a handful of horses here that have metabolic issues,
right,
or are potentially could develop them just as we're observing their health concerns. So that is something to keep in mind.
It is, and that is why when you come here on open days, you'll see some of our horses are on what are known as dry lots. So those horses are metabolic or Cushingoid, and they need to have a limited intake or no intake of grass at all. And that's because grass contains a lot of sugar, most especially during the springtime when it's growing is when it's at its highest. And then also one of the times to really watch out for is after the first frost in the fall. They'll wind up, the grass will have so much sugar in it that as the horses start to eat it, it can tip them over the edge. So our metabolic horses can be compared to diabetics in humans. So they just have to watch their sugar intake, and we have to watch that for them. Otherwise, they will go out and eat all of the grass. They'll eat it all, won't they, Dallas? So we have to watch out for that. So the big question is, well, what are we looking for? What are the signs and symptoms of laminitis and founder that we need to keep an eye on to so that we can see if we have any of our horses suffering from it? And the biggest telltale sign will be one of our nice chubby cresty horses. So the crest is right here on the top of Dallas's neck, and you can see he has a nice lean crest. Well, some horses get a lot of fat deposits up here in their crest, and that is usually a sign that they could potentially have metabolic disease and should be watched closely. So we'll see they'll get very sore in both front feet. They'll have an increased digital pulse. You find the digital pulse right back in here. You have all of your blood vessels running through down to the foot, and you shouldn't normally be able to feel the pulse on a horse with a healthy hoof. So even with an abscess, sometimes you can find a digital pulse, so it's important to diagnose properly, which is why we always get our vets and farriers involved. And then you always feel the foot. So right now, Dallas's foot feels pretty chilly because it's a chilly day, but normally his foot wouldn't be hot. If his feet felt really, really hot, especially right around here where the hoof wall meets his skin and his hair, if it feels hot, almost as if he has a fever, then we know something is going on in there that shouldn't be, and usually it's a telltale sign that it is laminitis or founder, especially if it's in both front feet. And it can happen in the back feet, and it can happen in just one foot, so that's why it's always important to get your vets and farriers involved when you're trying to get to the root of a problem with your horse's hooves. It can be a little complicated to figure it out, especially when all these signs and symptoms go together and they kind of match up with all different other issues.
Now, is this an ailment where you might be able to tell something is off based on the way that a horse is walking?
So yes, you can tell if they aren't sound, and usually you can see it in the front feet. They'll be walking very, very gingerly, almost as if both of their front feet hurt and they don't want to walk. So they might have kind of a painful shuffle. They might be walking like this, or they might lean back, which if Dallas could do a bow, he would show you. But they'll lean back and try and lift their toes up off the ground so that they're like this. What they want to do is alleviate all of the pain that's in the toes of their feet and put it back on the heels. So they'll be stretched out almost in not as drastic as like a down dog position, but pretty similar to it as they try and lean back and get the pressure off of their front feet. So laminitis and founder can come up suddenly, pass and go, and it just happens one time. And that's it, you're done. Thank goodness. Other times, a horse can be chronically foundered, meaning that it's an ongoing issue. And on this model that we have borrowed out from Dallas, he says, look at me more. On this hoof model that you can see these rings on the hoof. And you can see it's kind of misshapen when we compare it to the way Dallas's hoof looked a few moments ago. And these rings are a sign of chronic founder in this horse. So you can even tell, you can really see it right up here in the front, all these little ridges and rings. The front of the hoof should be fairly smooth and like kind of like this section here, fairly smooth. But you can see where it's starting to grow malformed, and that is because of all the inflammation inside of this horse's foot was causing this deformity to occur with time. So once we figure out that we have laminitis and founder, we have to figure out, well, how do we treat it? So we're going to work in conjunction with our vets, farriers, and especially our podiatrists, since it's an issue of the hoof. And we'll wind up getting the horses on anti-inflammatory medications to take down the inflammation and swelling that's in the lamina. And then we might need corrective shoeing. So some equines that are suffering from laminitis need additional support to their hooves as they're recuperating. Sometimes they even need it long term after they've fully recuperated. And but we'll have special shoes put on to try and give them some relief from all of the inflammation in their hoof. and then we'll start them on other medications. We'll have significant dietary changes. We want to take out as many sugars in their diet as possible and lower their grain consumption or completely take it away. Depending on their dietary needs, they might have to be changed out to a balancer type of grain that has no sugar in it and is low in carbohydrates. So that way their body has less to process and it can focus more on healing themselves.
So is laminitis an ailment that can go away, or once it's developed, that's something the horse that will have to be managed through the rest of their lives?
So it depends on the case, how severe it is, how soon you catch it. But once a horse has had laminitis once, you should always be on the lookout for it. Unfortunately, once they've developed it, they kind of have a propensity to have it again, especially if their diet isn't managed properly, if they get too much sugars and too much grass. So they need to be able to be closely monitored for that. And we can see over time on this hoof model what it does. See how bad this is pointed straight down. It should have a little more of an angle to it. So one of the complications with laminitis and founder is that they can start to, this bone here can start to drop down through the sole, or worst case scenario also, it will separate the hoof wall, which is right here, will separate from the laminae that's inside the hoof, which is also not a good outcome for them. So it's very important that we catch laminitis and founder very, very quickly so that we can keep the worst from happening if it's possible. So do we have any questions from anybody out there right now about laminitis or founder? I'm gonna get down some more treats. Yes, we will. So laminitis and founder happen more often than you think in draft horses. Ponies tend to be susceptible to it. These are all horses that tend to be easy keepers. So an easy keeper is a horse that doesn't need a lot of grain to keep them at a healthy weight. Horses that have a tendency to be more obese. And then also you have another type of founder, which is, or another type of laminitis, which is support limb laminitis. So we run into this issue when horses have a long-term injury that has to be rehabilitated. What happens is if they can't put a lot of weight on one foot, what do? Say if your knee is hurting, what are you gonna do? You're gonna put more weight on the other leg, right? Mm-hmm. When that happens in a horse, we can put too much stress on the opposite leg, which winds up causing the laminate to become inflamed, and then we get support limb laminitis. So the leg that's supporting them winds up developing laminitis. So when a horse has a long-term injury in one of their legs, we're always keeping an eye on the opposite foot to make sure that there's no changes in it that could show you that they have laminitis. So usually we'll put a supportive boot on them to try and give them a little extra cushion. You want to bed them deeply in their stalls, and then just keep a close eye on them as they're recovering from their injury.
As a equine rescue organization, the conditions that horses come in once they're rescued, once they come to the sanctuary, they can have injuries, long-term or short-term injuries to their legs. So again, not just our metabolic horses or horses that may develop metabolic issues.
Right.
It's our injured horses that may come in once they're rescued.
Exactly. So we have to keep a close eye. Or it could be one of our horses that gets injured just playing around in a field. If something happens that's detrimental enough to one of their legs and they have to come in and be on stall rest for a significant amount of time because they're chronically lame in one leg, always have to keep an eye out for that to happen. So it's very important that everybody gets monitored closely, but most especially as we start to go into spring, we'll be keeping a close eye on all of our minis, our drafts, and our ponies. And then also on our metabolic horses, because they can be sneaky sometimes. Mm-hmm. They like to try and stick their heads under the fence lines and eat the grass that's on the outside. So we'll go ahead and we cut that grass nice and short so they can't really reach much of it.
So Dawn has a question.
Okay.
Dawn, she's asking, she's saying, Secretariat passed away due to complications of laminitis. Have they now come a long way in treating it.
They've come a very long way in treating it. There's a lot more that we're able to see now that we have more technology out there. Now we even have MRIs available for equines. But the thing is that the structure of the horse hasn't changed in time. So we're still dealing with these very tender, tiny structures inside of their hoof. Now, while we have extra drugs that we're able to administer to them and supportive boots and mechanical shoeing, we still run into, sometimes we have horses that founder and we just can't bring them back. Oh, bless you. We just can't bring them back from that issue. Either something inside their body can't be brought back under control, or like we showed with one of our hoof models, something changes inside the hoof. So bones can rotate, they can move around in there if it gets bad enough, and they can wind up ultimately leading to euthanasia, just like what happened with Secretariat. And he was a very pretty boy, but yes, you're prettier. We know that. Hi, Dallas. He says, yes, I am. Do we have any more questions from anyone out there?
It just seems like there is so much to keep in mind for our staff here.
There is a lot to keep in mind because we're not only dealing with, we're dealing with all different breeds, all different ages, and all of them have their own unique healthcare needs, and they have all of these unique pasts, and some of them we don't even know their entire past. So we don't know if they've ever had an episode of laminitis or founder in the past, or if they need special, diets that we didn't know about. We have to make sure that we really closely watch every single horse, especially our new ones that come in. We get to know them very, very well to make sure that we're doing everything possible to meet their dietary and their healthcare needs to try and prevent future issues like laminitis and founder. So recently, hopefully you'll get to meet our newest member of the family soon, and she's one that we'll keep a close eye on just because she's a big draft mare. And the draft horses, they have more of a propensity for getting laminitis or founder than some other breeds out there. So we'll keep a very close eye on her and monitor her all throughout spring and summer and going forward. Every time the seasons change, the grass changes with it, and it's always important to keep an eye on all of the animals, even the ones who might not be more prone to it. Sometimes something can pop up and catch you by surprise. So it's very important, and all of our staff keeps a close eye on each of the equines to see if anything is just a little bit different with them. Hi, Dallas. He says, I need more cookies.
And we're so glad that February, in being International Hoof Care Month, really brings that attention to hoof care in all animals that have hooves, because with horses and hooves, it's essential.
It is
Hoof
essential.
care and healthy hooves are essential in
That's
taking
right.
care of them.
No hoof and no horse. That's the old adage that horsemen have lived by for centuries. And it's extremely important. And being one of the only mammals on the planet that has a one-toed hoof, unlike cows and goats who have two toes on their hooves, it's even more important because there's a whole bunch of tiny important structures inside that hoof that keeps them moving, quite literally. Is that good? Dallas says he loves getting these treats.
He's like, I love it.
It is very good.
I will be your model anytime if it means I get treats.
That's right. And we spent an entire month with Dallas being our fantastic hoof model, so we have to give him a big thank you for helping us out all month long. He's been on 4 lives now.
Yes.
So Dallas says, I think I'm going to take a break on Wednesdays from here on out for a little while. We have some fresh faces to bring to all of you out there.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot more really crazy topics to cover too. So who thought that we'd be able to spend an entire month talking about just the hoof? That's just one body part on a big body. Hi, Dallas.
But we hope that if you've tuned in to our lives these last 4 weeks throughout the month of February, that you have learned something and have enjoyed learning something about hoof care and hoof ailments and treatment and management and all the things that we could cover. And actually, there is so much more out there.
There is so much more. I mean, we went over just the basics in week 1, which is that Equines need to see a farrier every 6 to 8 weeks in order to get their hooves trimmed because they're continuously growing. And then we also talked about how we have to pick their hooves out and keep them clean. And why is that? So that we can monitor them for thrush, abscesses, and other ailments. And thrush, abscesses, laminitis, and founder are just 4 common ailments. There's a slew of others out there that horses and donkeys and mules can suffer from. And so there's even more information to be had out there, but it's just too much to cover. And that's an entire month that we've had to cover it. So there's still even more out there to learn, and we will bring you more when we can about the hoof. But we got the basics for all of you covered. He's trying to sniff my pocket. To see if there's other treats in
See if
there.
there's more treats, okay.
There isn't.
And we may have to go over to Gloria and Sergeant York.
And say hello.
Oh,
to
did they?
them.
Did you guys stop paying attention?
I think they finally stopped paying attention. To
Okay,
us.
okay.
So, which means that they were in fact only here for the treats. They weren't here for the education that we were trying to give to them and all of you out there. But at least they're really cute. I also like the fact that if you notice, they switched stalls. Gloria took over Sergeant York's suite. We have one of our tinier equines in one of our biggest stalls right now. But she loves it. She could do laps around in there. She has a fun time during the day.
But we hope all of you out there enjoyed this month of educational lives. We hope to do more mixed in with just some other fun videos. If there's ever a topic you want us to cover or any other live
Let us
ideas,
know.
please let us know. You can message
Yes.
us or email us. We'd love to see what you guys would. Dallas is like, yes, send us ideas,
I'm
please.
here for all the educational content.
And maybe he'll join us again.
He might. We can take a special request for Dallas to come back for educational lives. He does seem to really enjoy them. He likes seeing all of you out there, and also he loves standing here and just getting all the treats fed to him. He says, this is the best part of my day, is cookies. Yes, it is. We love cookies. Me too.
Well, thank you everyone for joining in.
We'll see you next